Thank you. Well, it is a joy to be worshiping with Second Service. I don't know if you know this, but I teach a class now during this time, a Sunday school class, and so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have your pastors sit through 3 services and all they do is sit there and pray occasionally. And so one of the joys for me is being able to teach a class during this time, and Tim gets the opportunity to teach the class this morning, which I hope that my people aren't eating him alive in there, because we've been on rabbit trails like for the last couple of weeks. I think that we've been through a lot over the last couple of weeks together. A couple of weeks ago we celebrated All Saints Sunday, and we've been talking about grief, and we had a grief workshop last weekend, and then last Sunday we had Commitment Sunday, and those are 2 kind of serious Sundays back to back. And I don't know about you, but Thanksgiving is coming, and as much as I enjoy the holidays, there is a reason Xanax exists. And that is to say that I get a little anxious around the holiday season, and I don't know about you, but it is nerve-wracking for me, right? All your family gathering together, and we all act like everything's perfectly fine, and then by halfway through the morning, we're all screaming and yelling at each other over something, and then by Friday morning, none of us are talking to each other, and we're all shopping in different stores on different ends of town, and then we come back and we watch a football game, and then after my Huskers will probably lose to the Hawkeyes this weekend, we won't be speaking to each other again. And then we'll all just go to bed and wake up and act as if nothing ever happened, right? I don't know about you, but I'm a little nervous about this holiday season. And so today we're going to laugh a little as we prepare for Thanksgiving and the upcoming holiday parties that we'll have for the next month, and just kind of prepare ourselves that way. I want you to hear a story from Genesis chapter 6. These are the descendants of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generation. Noah walked with God. And Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Those are Noah's sons, not part of the Thanksgiving dinner, just to be clear, all right? Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight, and the earth was filled with violence. And God saw that the earth was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted its ways upon the earth. And God said to Noah, I have determined to make an end of all flesh, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. Now I am going to destroy them along with the earth. Make yourself an ark of cypress wood. Make rooms in the ark and cover it inside and outside with pitch. This is how you are to make it. The length of the ark, 300 cubits. Its width 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits. Make a roof for the ark and finish it a cubit above, and put the door of the ark in its side. Make it with lower, second, and third decks. For my part, I am going to bring a flood of waters on the earth and destroy from under heaven all flesh in which is in the breath of life. Everything that is on earth shall die. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall come into the ark, you, your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives with you, and every living thing of all flesh. And you shall bring 2 of every kind into the ark to keep them alive with you. They shall be male and female, of the birds according to their kind, and the animals according to their kinds, and every creeping thing of the ground according to its kind. 2 of every kind shall come into you to keep them alive. Also take with you every kind of food that is eaten, and store it up, and it shall serve as food for you and for them. Noah did this, and he did all that God commanded him. Thus ends the reading. Maybe it's my morbid sense of humor, but I feel like gathering with my family sometimes is kind of like the Great Flood. There is potential for all things to be destroyed. I was thinking back about Thanksgiving a couple years ago. I really enjoy to cook. It's something I do on a regular basis. And one year, I finally decided that I was going to help make the Thanksgiving dinner with my mom. Now, there is a lot of truth to the old phrase, don't have too many chefs in the kitchen. right? If you're the primary cooker of a holiday meal, you know that one more person in the kitchen with you is just a nightmare. Just a nightmare. And so my mom was gracious enough to let me be in charge of the turkey. And I was very excited about being in charge of the turkey. I picked the right butterball turkey, right? And then I decided that this year we were going to buy one of those awesome injectors, and we were going to pump this turkey with all of the butter and herbs that I could possibly get into it before it started to spill out of the skin of the turkey, right? I think I watched it on Martha Stewart. And so I started prepping my turkey and getting it all ready to go. And my mom was doing the other things. And of course, the whole time I'm trying to work on my turkey, she is standing over my shoulder, correcting me, telling me what's right and what's wrong. And I'm growing more and more frustrated. And then all of a sudden it happened. I started to pull on the syringe, and it stuck. I didn't know what was happening, so I kept pulling harder and harder and harder until all of a sudden the syringe needle flew forward, struck the bowl perfectly, and shattered glass all over the kitchen. I started to laugh and said, "Well, I think there's something stuck in the needle." My mom responded by saying, "What have you done? What have you done?" Within moments, this little conversation about glass being all over the Thanksgiving meal spiraled into an argument out of control in which I left the kitchen, and my mom and I barely spoke the rest of the day. She was so mad. And I was mad because I thought I had broken my new syringe, and she was upset about some antique bowl her great aunt passed down to her. Lord, have mercy. Well, needless to say, I did not help finish the turkey that year. She probably washed all the butter off as she stuck the turkey back in the sink and tried to get all of the glass off of it. My mom and I did not cook in the kitchen again until last Thanksgiving. My sister Betty had had her first son in August, and Betty and I had decided that I would cook the Thanksgiving meal in its entirety last year and give my mom the year off. Well, my mom did not handle the news very well. So, as I'm standing in the kitchen, the turkey's been brining for 24 hours, and I'm excited to be cooking this meal. My mom sheepishly shows up in the kitchen, mimosa in hand, as if it were a peace offering, and says to me, "Do you need any help?" My first instinct was to say no. But she was kind enough to bring me a mimosa, and so I thought, surely I will make a way to include you in the kitchen this year. Now, neither one of us know our way around this kitchen at all. My sister Betty doesn't know how to cook. I once went and she said, "Do you want me to cook you something for dinner?" And I said, "That would be great." And she said, "The Domino's number's on the refrigerator." So here we are milling around in this kitchen. I tell you what. It only took 5 minutes. 5 minutes, folks. I had perfectly prepared the crust for my favorite strawberry pretzel salad. It was cooked perfectly, brown sugar, nicely done. I'd set it on top of the stove top, and my mother turned on the wrong burner. Within 5 minutes of her being in my kitchen, she had burned my strawberry pretzel salad crust. And you know what? Those were gluten-free pretzels. And you can't go buy more gluten-free pretzels on Thanksgiving Day. I was livid. Livid. And I asked her to leave my kitchen. Thanksgiving's less than a week away, and we haven't decided who's cooking what this year. The anxiety is killing all of us, and the only thing I know is we all scheduled the doctor's appointments to get a refill before we travel to meet one another. Thanksgiving can be a rough time. And I was thinking about this text today and how beautiful it is to think that perhaps the first Thanksgiving really took place on Noah's Ark. You see, God had decided that the world was corrupt. I love this story because we don't have a whole lot of a timeline, but we know that it hasn't been that long since God started by creating us, and He's already given up on us. We have Adam and Eve in the garden, and they get kicked out because they can't follow the rules. And then all of a sudden we have Cain and Abel, because that's always a good idea. Just kill your brother. And then all of a sudden, God looks down and says, there is nothing good happening here. And the only thing He could come up with was drowning everything, except for one favorable person that God could find, a person who stood blameless before God, who remained righteous even though the rest of the world was evil and wicked. And the beauty of this story is, if you just happened to be related to Noah, it didn't matter whether you were evil or righteous, you got a spot on the boat too. Which made me start thinking about family. All of us probably have somebody in our family that we look up to, that we care about, that is kind of the old sage in the room, that nurtures us and provides a guidance for us that we need ever much in our world. You know, the person that always says the right thing, that does the right thing. And the idea that every family most likely has one of those people, whether your family looks like your nuclear family or it's a group of friends that you hang out with or it's your church family. There's something to be said about standing in the presence of someone who can stand blameless before God. To be a part of what they're doing in this world, the way that they hear God's call on their life and they do it. It's pretty amazing. And I'm sure that they all seemed like pretty righteous people the day they got on the boat. But could you imagine spending 40 days with your family on a boat? My parents were here last weekend. They stayed more than 3 days. And if you know the phrase, guests are like fish, after 3 days, they begin to smell. So I started thinking about my family here in Indianola, our church staff family. Can we see the first picture, Joyce? Look at how beautiful we are. I mean, some of us. That is to say, not all of us are in the picture, only some of the staff. I mean, think about these. You may not know all these people. In the back row, we have Michael. He's our financial coordinator. He is a guru, right? This man takes off more days of vacation for golf than anyone I've ever met in my life. He's got a beautiful soul, and he's always down for a funny laugh. And then there's Barb. Barb can tell who is walking through the hallways of the church by the way their footsteps hit the creaks in the floor. Barb is infinitely aware of the institutional knowledge, and Barb will always kind of stand in front of a good idea until you've fully processed what it is you want to do. Then we have our new fearless leader, Tim, and we don't know a whole lot about Tim yet, but we enjoy his regular jokes about different churches and his theological takes on things. He's always got a story. And then there's sweet Meryl Lee, our kind part-time secretary who answers the phones and has this love for the Cyclones. Excuse me. And then there's Zach, our music director. He's kind of nerdy. He's an academic, right? He teaches at Simpson. He teaches lessons. He's got this great bubbly personality, but he doesn't have time to talk to anybody because he's always so efficient. And then there's Ellen. Ellen is the kind of person that is supposed to bring deviled eggs to the Thanksgiving party and brings pre-made pies, right? She is full of all the joy in the world, constantly worried about what we're going to do for the kids so that the kids have a good time, as if Pastor Sam enjoys kids. And then there's me, the sweet, charming, intelligent person in the office, right? Who is a total know-it-all. Has been in ministry for 4 years and thinks he's been around the block 30 years, right? I was imagining what it would be like for our family here on staff to be on the boat. And this is how we would look like at day 40. We see that second picture? Yeah, definitely. I love Ellen with all of my heart, but there are days. And she feels the same way about me. Michael, it may look like he's picking his nose, but he's actually trying to reach into his mind to pull all the logic and reason out as he possibly can to navigate the crazies that he works with on a regular basis. And Barb is always good at jumping in the middle and trying to squelch the fires around the office. And I thought maybe Tim was just praying in the corner, but he told me he was doing the see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil thing. There's Zach. Said enough. And sweet little Mara Lee, she looks all sweet and kind, but she's always sneaking cyclone crap into my office. She's quiet but deadly. Look at her picking on the sweet, innocent staff member. Doesn't even know it happened. Family is so important. And one of the reasons that our family gets along so well here on staff is because we have the same purpose and vision. And we want to see people grow closer in their relationship to God and to other people. I think about times in my life when my family doesn't tend to get along super well, and perhaps it's because we don't have the same vision and focus. Perhaps maybe it's that the family comes together for different reasons as opposed to just coming to give thanks and to sit at the table together and to share, to spend time with one another. I think about the idea that Noah is placed on the boat with his family, not because they were righteous, but because the work was too much for Noah to do alone. And God knew that if Noah was going to be successful in this journey, Noah was going to need a family surrounding him to be a part of the redemptive process of reconciling the broken world with God. Wouldn't it be amazing if we started to look at our families as partners in the redemptive process of this world, as opposed to an obstacle that we just have to get through a couple times a year? Wouldn't it be great if we gathered in that kitchen together and could successfully make a Thanksgiving meal without yelling at each other, as opposed to thinking, oh my gosh, Thanksgiving is coming. Who's cooking the turkey this year? Family is a joy. It's helpful. And to stand in the presence of our family is to stand in the presence of righteousness. We need family. We need church family. We need our families at home. We need our friend family. We need people in our lives to support and to guide us. Being 6 hours away from my family, the staff knows more about my personal life than they ever need to know. And it is a joy to be able to walk into one of their offices and share with them what's happening in my life, even though they've got much better things to be doing. Because we need that when we're in ministry together. What does it look like to be blameless before God? I mean, imagine all of the world is about to be destroyed, and only one person stands out. The Gospel of Matthew provides us with a small blueprint for what perhaps God is looking for when he's looking for the blameless. Not everyone who said to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father in heaven. On that day, many will say to me, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name and cast out demons in your name and do many deeds of power in your name? Then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Go away from me, you evildoers. Everyone then who hears these words of mine and acts on them will be like a wise man who built his house on rock. The rain fell, the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, but it did not fall, because it was founded on rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not act on them will be like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain fell, the floods came, the winds blew and beat against the house, and it fell. And great was its fall. You see, being Christian is about hearing the words of God and not only being a hearer of the word, but a doer of the word. And ministry starts in our families. Whether your family looks different than my family or not, the ministry that we do in our families, to be doers of the word, to love sacrificially in our family units, is extremely important. Reminds me of my grandmother. I love Grandma Betty, but she's kind of a hypocrite sometimes. Grandma Betty used to have a cussing jar. Anybody ever have a cussing jar in your house? Yeah? Do you have one now? Here's the thing about Grandma Betty. Everybody pays for every word that Grandma Betty thinks is a cuss word. But if Grandma Betty says the word, it wasn't a cuss word that time. Right? It's okay if she says it, but no one else can. Right? One day I said to her, I am sure glad that you are enacting a model of what family should look like when it's convenient for you. And I dropped my quarter in the jar begrudgingly. We have the opportunity to build our homes on a foundation rooted in the message of Christ, of redemption, to be pulled alongside with our families, to be partners in redeeming this world. And if it doesn't start with the way that we love our families and the people that we care about, then how do we ever expect the world to change around us? I was thinking about a tribal family, a big family that still functions in this way as we near Thanksgiving. Unfortunately, friends, as I look towards this family, I think about the pain that they've been through in the last year. Up on the reservation in South Dakota last year, Native Americans gathered in protest, standing there being shot with fire hoses, dogs in their face, military and police lined up to squelch their protest. And this year, they celebrate Thanksgiving with over 200,000 gallons of oil leaking on their land. And yet that family gathers around for a common purpose, to preserve what is rightfully theirs and to hold one another up in that fight. As I gather with my family this year, I hope just a little that we gather and are able to find ways to be righteous in this broken world. That as things break and crash in our kitchen, we can just pour another mimosa and laugh about it. That as we feel frustration gaining as our Husker football team is losing to the Hawkeyes, we can kindly think about all the Iowans that I don't have to see next Sunday because I already preemptively took vacation. That we can gather around the table of love and realize what this season is truly about. That we can truly start to look at our families as partners in what God calls us to, just like Noah did. Not all of us are in the same place in our families, but it's our job to minister to our families to bring them along. And like Noah, who knew his family wasn't righteous and yet pulled them onto the boat, the work is too hard if we don't share it with other people. That's part of God's plan for us, to realize we need one another. We need our families, and to pull each other closer in our relationship to God, to obey God and to fulfill God's commandments. Thanks be to God. Amen.